Thursday, November 3rd, 2016, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. I'd like to talk about the creature from Jekyll Island, and of course that's the Federal Reserve. That nickname comes from G. Edward Griffin's book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, in which he examines how the Federal Reserve was created, and the fact that the same big banks that are in charge of the corporate government today were the same banks that met in secret on an island on the coast of Georgia called Jekyll Island in a private club, and they drew up the plan for the central bank of the U.S., which they called the Federal Reserve System. And that was in 1910, the meeting at Jekyll Island. So why do I want to talk about the creature from Jekyll Island? Because I think the creature from Jekyll Island needs to be slain in order to drain the swamp. Donald Trump has been talking about the fact that the swamp of Washington D.C. needs to be drained. The corruption of the system needs to be wiped away. I know corruption will always be there, but the amount of corruption nowadays is just immense. And talking about central banks, I want to go back to one of the founding fathers now, Thomas Jefferson. And I've got here a screenshot of one of his famous quotations on private banks, and it's from the Jefferson Monticello website. And I quote Thomas Jefferson. He says, if the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The issuing power should be taken from the banks and restored to the people to whom it properly belongs. And I don't think he means restored to the government either. I think he means the people, for example, the way it was drawn up in the Constitution. If you found gold or silver, you could take it to the mint, which is run by the government, the federal government, and they would mint coins for you. That's what he meant. The issuance of the money should be controlled by the people and not by private banks and private corporations. So now I want to look at the United States. We're going to go back in history. Of course, the United States used to be 13 colonies, British colonies in North America. Then they became the 13 states, most of the eastern seaboard. The original 13 states in 1776 declared independence, fought the Revolutionary War. So the United States has not been what it is today, since then. It has evolved. So I want to, talk about, for example, the fact that from 1836, when the second bank of the United States, which was a second central bank in the United States, from 1836 to 1914, when the Fed was created, that was a period of 78 years that the United States didn't have a central bank. Andrew Jackson, of course, did not renew the charter, for the second Bank of the United States in 1836. So for 78 years, the U.S. did not have a central bank. So I'm going to look at some data now. So let's go back. Let's go back to 1836, and I've got this. It's the United States federal, state, and local government revenue. From 1836, and you can see there on the top left-hand side that GDP was 1,479 billion. That means roughly $1.5 billion GDP was in 1836. If you look in the bottom left-hand side there, under gross public debt, there's a big fat zero. And if you look at income tax, zero. Income tax is zero. There's no income tax, right? So you might say, oh, but that was in 1836. Yeah, that's correct. And that's when, just remember that from that period on until 1914, the US had no central bank. And I want to bring up another, this is like a map, a world map. And this is GDP growth since 1500. So I picked 1820 for GDP. It's GDP per capita. The orange color for the US is $1,000 to $1,990 per capita GDP. So you can see the US was, one of the richest countries in the world. The countries in gray, there's no data for it. Most of Latin America, you can see, is below $1,000. The UK is actually 2,000 to 3,999. So Great Britain is the richest country in 1820, but the US is just behind, but still not up there. So this is in 1820. I know we still had the second Bank of the United States. I couldn't get data for 1836, but just wanted to show you that. So now, let's go and look at 1914 and see what's happened to the United States economy. So let's have a look here. So I got that same United States federal, state, and local government revenue screenshot, but that's for 1914. Excuse me. So you can see there, GDP now is 36,831 million. Sorry. So that's 36.8 billion. So GDP, is gone up 25 times since 1836. That's without a central bank. There is income taxes there, 40 million. And I have to say, up until 1912, there was no income tax, because the income tax, the IRS was founded in 1913. So there was no income tax until 1912. So we got 40.7 million income tax. The gross public debt has grown. It's now $2,912 million dollars, or $2.9 billion. But that corresponds to 7.8% of GDP. So it's gone from 0 to 7.8% of GDP in 78 years. So not a huge increase. The other point I like to make is about the population. So the population of the U.S. in 1840 was around 17 million. So so in 1836 it was probably a little less than that. But in 1910 the population was 92 million. So 1914 it probably was almost 100 million. So you had GDP grew by 25 times. Population went from 17 million to almost 100 million. So there was big economic growth. And the other point I like to make is about prices without a central bank, right? So I looked into a website called westegg.com. That's WESTEGG.com. And they've got an inflation calculator. So I went back to 1836, which was the year that the second Bank of the United States was abolished. And I input $100. And then I input 1913. And according to this calculator, inflation calculators, $100 in 1836 would cost $91.13 in 1914. So for the same basket of goods, in 1914, as in 1836, you needed only $91.13. You didn't need $100. So, the value of the dollar actually went up. There was deflation, which is something central bankers nowadays hate, and that was without a central bank. But interestingly, if you put $100 in for 1914, and how much it would cost in 2015, you would need now $2,388 to buy the same basket of goods that cost $100 in 1914. So we've had 102 years, or 101 up until 2015, of central banking, and the value of the US dollar has been completely, destroyed. You need now almost $2,500 to buy the same basket of goods was worth $100 in 1914. I'd like to look also at the GDP, the data for 2016, that United States federal, state, and local government revenue data. So I'll bring up the screenshot here. You can see the GDP now is 18,472,000 million, which basically is 18.4 trillion, the GDP. But the national debt, the gross public debt, you can see there is 19,333,750 million, which is 19.3 trillion. So the GDP debt to GDP ratio is around 105%. So, and in 1914 it was only 7.8%. So what I'm trying to say is that the only good thing that the Federal Reserve and having private banks control the issuance of money and debt has done is to make in debt the United States and the public. And how, prophetic was that comment from Thomas Jefferson, that if you allow private banks to control the issuance of the currency, you will end up with the continent that your forefathers conquered, gone from you, and in debt, enslaved to the to these big corporations. So my point is that yes, it's very good to talk about draining the swamp and stopping the corruption between the corporate world and the political world in Washington, Wall Street, but until you slay the Federal Reserve monster, or the creature from Jekyll Island, I think it's going to be very hard to drain that swamp. And the Federal Reserve will continue to indebt, and the people of the United States. You've seen what's happened in the last 102 years or so. We've gone from almost having no debt to having, almost 20 trillion now in gross public debt. And a lot of people argue, oh, but we need a central bank. We can't have growth without a central bank. There's not enough gold, not enough silver. But look at what happened in the 19th century until the early 20th century. The United States became the wealthiest country in the world, the most productive, the richest country in the world without a central bank. People were coming to the United States or going to the United States, I'm not there, from all over the world, because it was the land of opportunity. for all the immigrants, and it still is kind of the land of opportunity. But there is no central bank. The value of the dollar went up over those 78 years. The size of the economy went up 25-fold. Physically as well, the United States was half of what it is today. Only had 25 states in 1836. By 1914, you had 48 states. The other two were added later, the last being Hawaii in 1959. So this excused that we need a central bank because there's not enough money, and that credit has to be created by the banks out of thin air to make the economy grow and to sustain development. It's all hogwash. So my question is, Mr. Trump, will you also slay the creature from Jekyll Island? Because, you know, just talking about draining the swamp sounds good, but you got to go to the root of the you know, where the root of the swamp is, and that's at the Mariner Eccles building in Washington D.C., which is the headquarters of the Federal Reserve System. So if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it far and wide, subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and if you'd like to donate to my channel, there's some links below in the description. I accept Bitcoin, BitGold. I still accept Federal Reserve notes as well through PayPal and Patreon. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.